Well, hello everyone. So I'm going to try to do something a little bit different this week. Normally, I was in the habit of doing a weekly update on the game I've been developing, Rogue of Valis, if you've been following the other devlogs, and going pretty well actually, but really just not much to show. But one thing I've been wanting to do for a little while was talk about some other games that I either grew up with or found inspirational or otherwise just found worth talking about. And sort of for the inaugural episode I guess you can call this a series, I thought I'd talk about the first game I ever beat, which was Dungeon of Shalan. So this was released in 1988 on Big Blue Disc, which, if you're not familiar with what that is, Big Blue Disc was a disc-based magazine back in, I don't know how long it went up through. This is not the issue that Dungeon of Shalan was distributed in. 1991, I just grabbed a random screenshot here. I want to say it folded sometime in the early 90s, but it lasted for a little while. Big Blue, of course, refers to IBM, so this was a magazine for IBM PC users, or compatibles, I suppose. And among other things, it would come with games and little utility programs and this and that. In fact, I can show you, which is on I loaded it here. You can see it came on a diskette. I pulled this from the Internet Archive, but of course this was distributed on a disk, and it has some little utility programs here. There's usually some kind of special program that might be an advertisement or a demo or something for a larger thing. Of course, there's also games. Now, this is not how I got this. I didn't know about Big Blue Disc for a long time. In fact, I always thought it was a company, because when you launch Dungeon of Shalan, it'll say Big Blue Disc Presents. I thought it was like Apogee or id or any of the other publishers at the time. I got most of my games from How PC. My brother and I would download a lot of games from How PC. This was a BBS, a Houston Area League of PC Users. And if you aren't familiar with what a BBS is, the best way I can describe it for someone that is only familiar with the internet is if you imagine, instead of using your browser to connect to a website, you call it up on your phone. Or modem, I should say, be a little bit more appropriate. So you would dial into this service, and I don't know if it had access to the larger internet. Of course, if it did, it would not be the internet we know it as of today. But you could download a lot of programs and games from their site. At least that's the only thing my brother and I ever did with this. I think they had bulletin boards, and it is a BBS, right? I'm sure it had other services, but the games library was the big thing that my brother and I would use this for. My dad had a membership, and I don't think he ever really used it that much. It was really just me and my brother that would use it. So, Dungeon of Shalan. Let's talk about that for a moment. So, you can read the documentation, and I won't read the whole thing here, but the part I always found kind of interesting is at the bottom. Elements of adventure, fantasy, and arcade games are combined in this program. You move your character around floor plan maps like some fantasy games. You pick up objects and use them for various purposes like in an adventure game, and there is fast-paced real-time action like in an arcade game. So again, this was put out in the late 80s, but I want to say this was heavily inspired by the Atari game Adventure. And I did not know what even Atari was when I was a kid. Like I've mentioned before, my family, we grew up with PCs. And some of our friends had Nintendos, so we were aware there was a thing called Nintendo. So the Atari, I learned about this much later in life. And I got to play Adventure once on an emulator, and my first thought when I was playing Adventure is, well, this is a lot like Dungeon of Shalan. Adventure must have copied that. Of course, Adventure was from the 70s, so it's the other way around. But in adventure, I want to say one of the gimmicks of the game is you carry around objects, and you can only hold one object at a time, which is the main limitation in Dungeon of Shalan. And like in adventure, I want to say, to be honest, I don't remember adventure all that well. But like in adventure, there are dragons and monsters you can slay if you have the right object. It's a pretty short game, and my first thought was, well, maybe I should just play through it. Call this a let's play, I suppose. But I really want to focus a little bit more on what can we learn from it, like from a game design perspective, because that's my focus these days is, how do I improve my own games? And, certainly taking a more critical look at what else is out there. Not that this was a very popular game, but certainly one that, is popular in my household. I guess you could call that influential. I was the first one in my family to beat this. My brother, sometimes my mom, if she was bored, and I would sit down and play some of these games, usually after school because maybe nothing else to do. And we got stuck on this for a while. I guess I'll say, spoiler alert, how you beat the game. There's 21 rooms, depending on how you count them. More on that later. And to win, you have to get to Shalan's chamber with the emerald bird. And the emerald bird will come to life and fly and bite him and kill him. And it took us a while to figure it out, because if you go into Shalan's chamber with anything else, he'll just kill you. Or he has a little minion that will kill you instead. And I guess one day later I figured out that if you read the instructions, it does say in there to bring the emerald bird. And maybe kindergartner me thought I was being clever by reading the instructions. I don't know. I just remember I was the first one to beat it. And that was that. So without further ado, let's play. I'm going to run it here. Now, I'm not going to run the instructions. The instructions is actually pretty nice, at least for the time. The problem is you can't get out of it early, so it's going to make you sit and wait through a movie that I almost want to say that it takes longer than it takes to actually play the game. So our player character here, we'll call him Jim, because he doesn't really have a name. This is Jim. He starts off in a maze, and immediately you have the sword. Now, if it happens while I'm playing, I'll talk about my major gripe with this game. It's probably my only one. Despite its simplicity, I think it's pretty solid. These are landmines. Okay, so that little green thing, that was the boomerang. And the boomerang will bring objects to you, like the red key there that we'll need later. And the little thing at the bottom there is a zombie. The zombie will take objects from you, and the zombie will also move monsters. There's a skeleton, there's a dragon. Most of the monsters you can outrun pretty easily, but the one exception is the skeleton. If the skeleton comes for you, you cannot outrun them. The problem that can occur is the zombie can take your sword, and then you can't kill the skeleton. That's a sunburst. You need the sunburst to kill ghosts and ghouls. The sword kills pretty much everything else. Okay, so we're now at the hardest part of the game. Further down, there is a door that can be unlocked with the red key, which the boomerang's now bringing for us. There's also a door that can be unlocked with the green key and the gold key. The gold key unlocks Shalan's chamber. The green key unlocks the chamber with the gold key, and the red key there unlocks that door. This is when we're at the most vulnerable, because I can't carry any weapons now. I can only carry that green key, and I have to make my way to the green door and get the gold key. So if I'm going to die, this is the most likely place I'm going to die. Now, the next thing I don't think is really that fair. If you see that room to the south, that is a pit. If you walk into a room that has a pit, then you pretty much fall into it and die immediately. I don't know if that's really that fair, because there's no Basically, you can only figure that out with trial and error. But, you know, hey, you got 5 lives, and if you know what you're doing, that's more than plenty. I'm actually pretty surprised right now I've gotten through this with as few hassles as possible. I will add, this is my 4th attempt recording this game, and there's a little flicker of ghost there. Let me get through here real quick. Okay, checkpoint. Since I'm doing really well right now, I'm going to sacrifice a life to show you the other pit, because I want to talk about that one in a little bit later. Okay, memorize that passage. I want to talk about that passage is to the right. Okay, so the closest thing this game has to a boss is this room, the acid room. Now, I swear, when I was little, it took us forever to get through this room. If you die, you go back to a checkpoint. The checkpoints aren't marked, but they tend to be the rooms with nothing in them. Okay, oh, I get to show this off. So there are a lot of little Easter eggs in this game, like that. So I brought the flower into the flower room, and I got a little like... By the way, I will mention the zombies can't take the green and gold keys. Okay, the harp. I don't want to go back, but that harp, I want to point out, if you go through the instructions, at the very end, there's a list of about 12 statements. Ooh, I got really lucky there. Oh, he took the emerald bird. I guess this is my opportunity to talk about my gripe with this game. There are several circumstances, such as this one, where you're just in a kind of limbo. And hey, there we go. You're in a kind of limbo. But I got lucky. I got my emerald bird back. So, if you don't have an object you need, you're just kind of sitting there. Hey, there's my high score for my dud recording. You're just kind of sitting there waiting for the right object to be brought to you. Yeah! And unless the skeleton comes, you're in kind of a stalemate with any monsters because they're slow. You can outrun them. And what sometimes happens is you get stuck in a waiting loop. Now, I'm starting this again for good reason. So you saw at the end it said, try Shalan 2. This game gets nuts if you start it again. It doesn't happen every time. I want to say it's a glitch. But here are the landmines again. If you play the game again like that, like the objects come to life. And I want to say it's a glitch, but at the same time, I have no idea what Shalan 2 is. I've never been able to find Shalan 2. So I always assume that that glitched out version was Shalan 2. Oh, I cannot kill the dragon with the harp. Okay, so this is the stalemate I was talking about. Like, I have no other choice but to sit here and wait. I think one thing the programmer could have done a little bit better is make the boomerang smarter. If it knows you need a certain object, have that one be the first one that grabs you. I mean, there's still that element of suspense. Like, I think the mechanic of the zombie stealing your weapon is really pretty good, but the boomerang could then be made a little bit smarter so that it brings you the thing you need and you're not stuck here waiting. But while we're stuck here waiting, I guess I can talk about that last page. There are 12 statements, and the game says true or false. Some are true, some are false. One of them says music can be an uplifting experience, and that, of course, is your hint that if you are carrying the harp, you can fly in the pit, so the pit won't kill you. The other statement, and maybe this was a warning for coronavirus, it says watch out for bats. Like, you see those green bats? I have no idea what those do. And that always used to bug me. And the reason why it bugged me, I want to see if I can get to it. I'm not going to beat the game again, so if I can get the red key, I'm just going to go right to that one pit with the chamber. But I need the red key. Like I say, here we are at a stalemate again. Can't do anything. So I'm just gonna sit here and wait for that red key. This room's a little bit weird too. If you sit here long enough, it'll say Shalan is watching, and you can walk through the text. Maybe that red key is in one of these other rooms somewhere. This room's a checkpoint, so I don't really want to go back to the right. Ah! Thank you. And that is weird with that gold key. That has to be a glitch. Okay, well, since I don't care about winning, I'm just gonna hope that I can get... Hey, there we go. There's the harp. Okay. And what is... Like I said, this gets weird because you saw the clock. The clock came to life. I don't know what kills the clock. Okay, there's one pit. Now, I'm not going to let go of the harp because if you let go of the harp, you'll fall. Which, by the way, if a zombie steals the harp from you while you're in the pit, you will fall and die. So I want to talk about imagination because I'm actually getting close to the last thing I want to say. Talk about imagination for a little bit. So games like this, can I outrun the dragon? Yeah, I can outrun the dragon in this pit. Ooh, never mind. Give me that. Okay. So I spent more time than I wanted to admit as a kid trying to figure this one out. And by the way, if I let go of the harp, you won't fall through the screen there. Like this, it just brought me back to the landmine room. And now, I kind of have to start the game over again. Is that a trap? I don't think so. So, the reason why I wanted to show you the flower room. By the way, let me show you the stalemate. This is the stalemate I was talking about. We have no other choice but to sit here and kind of walk around in a big circle. So, in the instructions for the game, it says there are 21 rooms. And I counted. There's 20. Where's the 21st room? I might not be able to do this. And I want to say... Oh, I got stuck on a pixel. I want to say that was a glitch. Like... That pit was supposed to take me to the 21st room, not back to the landmine room. But in the game Adventure, like one of the most famous features of Adventure was the Easter egg, where if you bring the gray dot to the correct room, you get to see, the room with Warren Robinette's name. Maybe there are more things I have to do, like bring the flower into the flower room. It beeped at me when I did that, and I assume it just gave me some bonus points. But maybe I could do other things. Like another thing you could do is there's a little flame object. Ooh, double skeleton. There's a little flame object. You can take the flame object and light the lantern. Like maybe there's a whole bunch of little things. If you do all of them, then that pit hallway goes into the correct room. I don't know. Like I said, I spent more time than I wanted to admit as a kid trying to figure this out, and that's probably the thing I like best about these games. I talked about Prince of Persia in one of my other devlogs, and these simple games, maybe and most likely because I was so little when I played these, they really did quite a bit to stir the imagination. Like here's this, little virtual world you get to walk around in, and it's, full of mysteries, and that's really kind of the feeling I would like to say I can get in my games. I'm trying to have little things to intrigue the player. One thing I think is one of the most important arts of storytelling, be it, a movie, a book, a game, whatever, is knowing when to leave details in the mind of the audience. And I think this is, I think the first example I could think of would be in the noodle incident for Calvin and Hobbes, where, I read in one of like Watterson's, I couldn't remember his name for a moment. I read one of Watterson's books where he had talked about that and said, I really had nothing in mind with what the Noodle incident really was. I just figured it's more interesting left in the minds of the reader, something to that effect. And that's the thing with these little pits and things is it suggests there's more to the world than there really is. And maybe I'm getting too deep with this kind of thing. It's probably a glitch. Maybe there's another room. Well, something's just happened. I think the zombie just brought the like you heard the beep. I think the zombie or the boomerang just brought the flower into the flower room. So yeah, there's things like that where look at that. Oh, I did not mean to drop that. Yeah, anyway. There's just little things like that where I like to think if I can make the player think a little bit like what's behind the next curtain. But there's also a bit of an art to doing that right. Like in mystery writing, I guess you'd call those red herrings. If the player gets stuck in a level, then they're going to be looking for any clue to get out, and that's when a red herring might make things frustrating. But if there's a clear path through a level, then if you put a door that's unreachable or just anything that suggests there's a hidden passage, that may not be frustrating. It might add a little bit of mystery. And that's what I like to do is like to add little things like that. Oh, there's the thing. Oh, and he took the sword. I guess this was convenient, but again, this was the stalemate I was talking about. It can be a frustrating part of the game when you run into a stalemate, but otherwise, I think it's really pretty solid, although simple. This game is not well known. There's the lantern, but it was lit. This game's not well known, so this may be the only Let's Play of this game once I upload this video. I got the name of the guy who wrote it. Let's see if I can get that real quick. You push escape to quit, but you have to suicide to get out of the game. But yeah, whoever made this, if you're watching this, let me know what's with that chamber, that pit. Is there a 21st room, or was 21 a typo? Is there really only 20 rooms? I don't know. I'd like to know. I've thought about that longer than I wanted to admit. Let's see who wrote this. Not Big Blue Disc. John F. Allen and Joe Allen. I know this is a long shot, but if either of you are out there, let me know what's at the other end of that hallway, what there really is supposed to be. And if there's a Shalan 2, I'd be interested in playing it. I have a suspicion Shalan 2 is not the redo of the second playthrough of the game where the objects come to life, but maybe it is. I don't know. Let me know. I'd like to learn. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the video. So as I head out, let me say thank you for watching as always, and see you in the next one.